Hello, everyone. I am honored to be here and to be able to talk to you. I hope everyone is comfortable with English. In case you want to ask some questions, I'm more than happy to talk to you either today or tomorrow at the conference. And today, although the focus of this conference is technology, I would like to actually focus a bit more on space. I am a space consultant for universities and schools. I work for an American company and with our partner Agahelas here in Athens in order to develop, design, and implement new learning spaces that are not teacher but rather student focused. I've been working in this role for more than 10 years, and I spend most of my time coordinating and organizing and facilitating workshops with teachers, students, in order to understand their needs and to develop learning spaces that support them best. What better place to start a conversation around education than in Greece, the country who actually gave us the definition and the meaning of education. Pedagogy comes from the word pedagogia, which actually means someone to lead a child. And I do believe that teachers are probably some of the most amazing roles in the world because they have such a power to influence and change someone's life. They are an agent of change. If we listened at OECD, some of the global trends might be scary, might be optimistic, empowering, maybe could create some anxiety. But one thing is for sure. The world that we live today in is changing much faster than it did even a decade ago, and our schools are not yet preparing students for this amount of change. We still learn in classrooms that look more or less the same for more than a century. Spaces that were amazing at teaching large groups of students and to be extremely efficient in preparing factory workers, but they are no longer fit for purpose for today's knowledge economy. We need a change, because if we don't start from the classrooms, then we're failing the students from the beginning. I would like you to ask yourselves, I know that everyone has a child, a grandchild, a nephew, or a niece. Do you believe that schools and universities today are preparing and teaching the children to be fulfilled, successful, and purpose-driven people? If you believe that this is not the case, if you're worried about the problems of mental health that young people are facing, about digital addiction from technology, from apps, and everything that comes with, then I believe that the answer should and could start from school. When Think Young, a think tank from Brussels, asked students from 13 European countries, what do you want from a university? No one said more free time or more technology or even more online classes. They said they want to be encouraged to think freely and to think critically. This was their most important aspect of university studies. They wanted teachers that not only teach them, but that actually act as guides and mentors to them. They wanted to be able to learn earlier and faster what happens in the world of work by partnering with companies and learning from them. And they wanted that the universities support their physical and mental well-being. We need a shift. We've been teaching and learning in an industrial model that is no longer fit for purpose. We need to move away and to design learning spaces that are not fixed and rigid and focused only around classrooms. We need to move to open spaces, to fluid spaces, where possible, smart buildings that consider more the rhythm of life and the energy of students than actually efficiency and timetables and, I would say, grades. We need to ask our teachers to consider moving away from being, like I'm standing here, the only expert in the room, to actually the resource guide, the person that encourages students to learn by themselves. We need to teach students and young people how to learn, because this is going to be their life from now on. And finally, we need to consider people as not only defined by their degrees, but rather by their passion and purpose they bring. Skills that were relevant 20, 15, even 5 years ago will not be relevant in the next decade. Technology is making a huge impact and everything is changing. The only thing that we can teach students, it's actually the passion and the love for learning. I would like to share one of the examples, one of my proud projects, University of Glasgow. For those that haven't heard of it, it's one of the largest and oldest universities in the UK. It's in top 1% of the most performant universities in the world. And although they're one of the oldest in the UK, they have learned and they have realized that they need to move away from traditional to student-centered learning spaces. Because they wanted and they realized that in order to develop students that are fulfilled, they need to create inclusive environments where students can develop meaningful connections with teachers and with one another, and where they can develop awareness of themselves, intercultural experiences with different people from around the world, and where they can challenge their thinking and even challenge sometimes the norms. Their top three I would say, mission and values for the development of their new campus was, one, to ensure that across all of their buildings across the campus, they offered the same experience regardless of the building or the faculty. They wanted to bring students into their campus, so they wanted to create a sticky campus, and they wanted to prepare students to be creators, not only consumers. They are moving away from the traditional learning to a learner-centered by considering the involvement of students in the classroom, in the learning spaces, by providing multiple ways and multiple minutes where students actually collaborate, and their entire teaching is actually focused on collaboration. They are offering a variety of classroom layouts and spaces that are fit for multiple purpose, and they're ensuring that they will be able to integrate technology that can support the evolution and the development of new tools. The most important and the heart of their campus are the learning spaces, the soft zones, the in-between spaces, and not their classrooms. With their new building, they decided intentionally to give and to allocate more space to open learning areas, to transform the cafeteria area from a place of just eating to a place where students can stay and learn that is extremely busy and vibrant all around the year, and to provide multiple options for all the students' needs. Some of the lessons learned: first, it's extremely important to them to include student representative and to bring them at the table when a space is being designed in order to ensure that all students are heard and all needs are met. Choice and control and flexible spaces were also extremely important because everyone has a preferred spot, the preferred postures in which they want to learn. And finally, when I asked students, what do you want the most, everyone said power, Wi-Fi, and coffee. Then when we looked at classrooms, although they still have some traditional front-facing lecture rooms, they decided intentionally to move away from building just amphitheaters where students are passively learning to collaborative classrooms of different sizes. They differ from 15 people to 300 people, but they have in common the fact that it's focused on collaboration and not on passive lecture mode. They considered flexible furniture, movable chairs, movable tables, sometimes items that can stack. The technology hasn't played a very big role in these rooms, although visibility has been a big issue, and acoustic is also extremely important, as we know. But the big part, the focus in this type of spaces was to move away from where a teacher would actually stand in front and actually focus on how students learn within groups. Furniture and technology are extremely important and they play a huge role in teaching. However, collaborative classrooms are winning all the time, regardless of the level of technology you have in the room. People learn much better from one another than when someone is just giving them the information and the data. Flexibility and student agency go hand in hand. When students are empowered, are allowed, and are encouraged to think of how space changes their behavior or influences their behavior, they feel more independent, they feel more respected, and they develop a self of agency. So the university is actively encouraging its students to move the furniture in classrooms as well as in the in-between spaces. Finally, they learn that depending on the size, the staffing model, and how a classroom or a lesson is structured and planned is very different from a 30-people space to a 300. In the larger spaces, they needed to reconsider how many teachers and assistants they have per student, and to change the way that they develop their lesson. But finally, the different setting was also something that they saw working and being appreciated in the classrooms as well as in the learning spaces. When students have the choice and option to choose between different posture, everyone is much more happier. Finally, the technology piece. Yes, Glasgow University is also very forward-thinking and is looking at implementing technology in their teaching spaces. Some of their flag classrooms are called Technology-Enabled Active Learning. And this is a space that is a bit harder to teach in because it's quite a large space. It varies in size from 30 to 120 students. But the focus here is, again, away from the teacher as being the expert, the master of knowledge in the room, to the student group. The focus on learning here is on students actually evaluating, creating, and sharing content that's being developed in the lesson. The investment was quite high, and the risk with implementing the space was also quite high, but the university is really happy with the output. And some of their learnings include the fact that when you look again at different sizes, smaller teal classrooms to bigger teal classrooms require a different approach. Teal classrooms are quieter, less overwhelming, and easier to control. However, it does not fit for maybe first-year students, groups where usually you have a larger cohort. Equity and inclusion, as well as considering the possible disabilities among students and teachers, are extremely important, and the university made, although not a very cost-effective choice, to make all the tables height adjustable individually so that they can accommodate to individual needs of people and teachers. And finally, they did learn that through this model, the fact that the students can go from assessing data to proposing ideas, to evaluating, to creating, and to sharing, elevated their learning outcomes. And it wasn't a short journey if you think so. It took more than 10 years, and it's still an ongoing journey of elevating their teaching and learning from how to best utilize this. It started with pilots, with interviews, with workshops, and it continues with trainings, with lunch and learns, where teachers share best practices on how to utilize the spaces. But the university is extremely happy with the result. And if you think, well, is there any data behind it? Yes. Student-centered classrooms, regardless of the amount of technology that's being used, are improving with almost 70% the creativity and the critical thinking in students, and they offer more chances for teachers to connect at a meaningful level with their students and with their children. So hoping that this will provide the energy to push forward the education system, which in the recent days I learned that it could be a bit rigid here in Greece. I just hope that this provides you with enough information and tool to believe that the change is needed and it's actually for the best. Thank you.